This is Tim Evans with Crack Eraser. I also occasionally do some videos on vehicles, and this is a 2000 X5. I've had this thing since 121,000. Now it's got 247, and as you watch some videos on there about the power steering pumps, power steering pump was making a terrible noise, and it was whipping up the power steering fluid and pushing it out the weep hole. There's a little weep hole on this cap that lets the pressure off if there's too much. And I had a used power steering pump put on it because I try not to put too much money into this thing. In fact, I got check engine lights like a Christmas tree in there, but my philosophy now is as long as it runs, gets me point A to B, I don't worry about most of them. Like the anti-lock brakes is out, but you know, it's still got brakes, and I'm an old school guy. I can drive without anti-lock brakes. But anyway, the thing runs good. I'd like to get a couple more years out of it. So I'm going to change this power steering pump reservoir. They're only about 17 bucks. I got it off of Amazon. And I think the way we need to go about this to get to the lines on the bottom is to take these 10 millimeter bolts out here. These 10 millimeter bolts that hold it on, hold the reservoir on. And then there's a bolt here that holds the bracket. And I think I'll take the 10 millimeter bolts here to let the expansion tank out of the way a little bit, so you know I can get to it. These right here, sorry, I was probably covering up the camera. And I think that is going to get me in there where I can get to those lines. It should be fairly straightforward. So anyway, I'm going to do that, and then we'll continue on. Okay, as I suspected, once you get these two bolts out of here, and I also took these loose, so this lets this move a little bit, and the bolts up here to the reservoir, that should give me enough room to get down in there and get to those clamps on those hoses. I'm thinking that'll give me just enough room. You can see the one down there. So now the next thing we got to do is we got to suck out the fluid in the reservoir, and I've got a special thing for that. So let me put some gloves on here and we'll get back to it. Okay, so I also took the bracket off down here, and I let that drop down. You can see it in there just out of the way, right, just to give me a little more room. Now we've got to suck the fluid out, and what I've got here, and you can use a turkey baster. They make some other special stuff. I think I bought this about 30, 40 years ago from Snap-on. I'm not sure where, Craftsman. Anyway, that's just going to let me suck the fluid out of here. There's still going to be some in there, so we're going to have to put some paper towels in underneath it. So I'm going to suck the fluid out now. I don't know if I could set the camera. I should have got my little thing here that would let the camera set up. There. If I can get it to... What can I prop it up with? Well, that's all right. You guys understand. I'll suck the fluid out and then we'll start again. Okay. Now I've got the fluid sucked out, and you can see that filter up inside of there. And there's a little filter. It's about an inch thick or so, white, with a fine screen in there. But you can't replace the darn thing. You got to replace this whole housing. And also, I got this light off of Amazon. I don't remember what brand that you can charge. Maybe it says on it. Looks like Saber, S-A-B-E-R. That thing is super awesome. That just clips onto the hood, and that's what's lighting everything up in here. So now I'm going to see if I get at those clamps once I've got most of the fluid sucked out. Make sure you put a big paper towel on there because there's going to be more fluid that's going to come out of this thing. Okay, after trying every tool known to man, I broke one of my little hooks I call booger pickers off. I finally went with these snips, and I was able to get in there and snip that in two and get both of those off. So, and I'm pretty sure there's room for me to put screw clamps back on there. I can get it up enough. So we're going to install the new one with some new screw clamps, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I've got my new screw clamps on there. I'm thinking I can reach them. We're about to find out. It lifts up pretty good. And here's the new reservoir. There's two different size lines, so this looks to be the same. So we'll see if we can put it back in. Okay, after some more monkeying around, I found out I can stick this clear underneath there and get to these screw clamps, see? With a screwdriver. Thought I was going to have to use a socket, but I can get in there. So now I just got to slide that bracket up on there. And as you can see it down there. Luckily I left it below before I put those hoses on them, my screw clamps. Hopefully you can see those under there. But it kind of tucks up under here, and there was room. So, you know, you got a reasonable amount of room. So anyway, now we'll finish her up and add to it. Okay. So what I did is I just put all the bolts back in finger tight. You know, these three, the big washers, and the two on there. First I put this in, and then I put these two bolts, and then I put these two bolts. But there's plenty of room. I still got to tighten up the clamp. But it's all back together, and I don't think we've messed anything up, and we didn't make a terrible mess. I had a little bit down on the analog brake module, which I wiped off, but only a little teeny puddle on the floor this big. I also sucked the extra oil out of the hoses once I had them off the reservoir, so they didn't leak as I was moving things around. So far so good. We'll finish it up, and then we'll do the rest of it here. Again, this is Tim Evans with Crack Eraser. I am the inventor of long crack repair, but I sometimes do some videos on fixing your car, especially this old beast, because taking it uptown every time I turn around is inconvenient. So I got it all back together. So like I said, I didn't have to unhook the reservoir. I just had to unbolt it, move it out of the way, move this bracket a little bit that holds it, and take the power steering reservoir out. Be careful when you're tightening these back up. You know, this is all ABS plastic. I just used a little teeny ratchet and socket, so you don't want to be tightening it too tight or anything like that. So, you know, you don't want to bust that plastic, but, you know, just snug it up. They're just old 10mm bolts. And the other thing I want to talk about, so now we got to fill it up. And when cold, you're just going to fill it with power steering fluid up to this level. Up to the first mark on here. And then when it's warm, you know, it goes up to there. Now, I've been told, and you can see that new screen down in there clearer on this one. Now, I've been told that, you know, this takes the old style power steering fluid, but the new stuff supersedes it. The CHS11S, I think it's called. Here, I've got some over here. But I've had some good luck with this Lucas. So, CHF. 11S, CHF 11S. I've been told that's what you put back in there, but I know my friend that owned a performance shop for years, so this thing started out, it was leaking and was making a terrible noise, and I think the fact that it was pulling air in the system is what messed up the other pump, or maybe when I had that used pump put on, it wasn't bad, because it made the same kind of sound, you know. And if you turn it to the right and clear to the left, I had my mechanic friend come over, then the air came out and started working. And he said the problem is the screen was plugged enough that, you know, it couldn't breathe, especially when it was cold. It couldn't flow the fluid through there, and it was causing air in the system. But I had a leak this whole time too, and I never really did figure out where. So what he told me to do to start out with is to use this Lucas power steering stop leak. And at first I laughed. I said, oh yeah, mechanic in a bottle, right? And he goes, yeah. He says, I've used this like on the old Hondas where they take the Honda special fluid and people would put the wrong stuff in and then the racks would leak and would seal them up. He said he used it on his X5. And I said, okay, well, he's pretty sharp, my friend John. I said, oh, I'll try it. So I ended up putting like a bottle and a half in here. But sure enough, it stopped the leak. So that's some amazing stuff. But I don't know. It was still making noise in the morning, so it quit leaking, but it was still pretty noisy when you started up. So I was sure that this screen was probably the problem and maybe caused a problem with that other pump because I let it go too long. So anyway, this is not a bad repair. Should take you about an hour, and then you're up and running again, and it's a $17 part. So again, I'm Tim Evans with Crack Eraser, the inventor of long crack repair for windshields. We fix cracks up to 24 inches. You'll see a lot of my videos. Occasionally I do a video on vehicles because I use YouTube all the time to fix this vehicle. It's old, as I put at the front. It's got 247,000 on it. but I still want to use it. It goes back and forth to work a couple miles a day, but I have all my windshield repair stuff in there. So a lot of times I'll fix it myself. So what I did is, even though I talked earlier about using that newer fluid like my 08 takes, you can take a picture of that, not the license plate. My 08 takes that new stuff. We like our BMWs. That's my wife's car, my 08 335.
Turn it around.
So anyway, what I did is I thought, well, I could put the new stuff in, but since this stopped the leak, and there's probably some in there, I thought, well, I'll just use it up. So I put the rest of this, about a half a bottle, and then I had some of their power steering fluid with conditioner from Lucas, and I thought, well, I'll just use that up in this one, and that should work fine, because this stuff really did stop the leak. It took a bottle and a half. So then I just filled it up. I don't like to overfill them, so I'm going to run it some, check it in the morning, because it was hot when I came in. So I just filled it to the add mark there, to there, or I will finish filling it up. It might have took a little more in. I'll see. Let me screw it in here and see. Yeah, so we're almost to the add. So I'll fill it up to the add mark, and then, or maybe leave it a little low because it's warm, because I want to, you know, not have it too full. So I'll run it good. I'll check it in the morning when it's cold, and then I'll top it off if it needs. And but that hopefully will fix it, and I believe that it will. So again, this is Tim Evans with Crack Eraser.